Hey, welcome back to another episode of CX Riot Radio, where we talk about customer experience and stuff, still in a hyper caffeinated state. I'm David. I am the caffeinated CXO, and I'm your host on CX Riot Radio. We have a special episode for you today, a very special after school special that is also very special. So, yeah, you should feel special for getting to listen to this special. If you've been listening to the show for a while, or if you just know me in real life, then you know I like World of Warcraft. And on top of that, I am a classic Andy. Classic is where I go. Classic is what I do. Right now, not right now, but currently, not currently, but you know what I mean. I am going through World of Warcraft Classic Season of Discovery, which is a mouthful, but it's also a very nice full. Yeah. So today we're going to be watching a video and reacting to it, and then we'll talk about it after about something to do with the World of Warcraft. And don't worry, we will tie it in to customer experience and stuff because Blizzard, the owner of Warcraft, has customers. And I am one of those. And so are millions of others. If you count up the people that play World of Warcraft, any of its variations, any of the Diablo games, Overwatch, and other such things, other games that they have, then you know what we're going to talk about. Maybe. Or maybe it'll be a special surprise for the special after school special that you should feel special to listen to. So, without further ado, let's watch the video. Yeah. So, we're going to watch a video called Classic WoW's Population is Changing and It's Concerning. So, let's find out why it's concerning.
Classic World of Warcraft is one of the most popular MMOs on the planet, not counting Position 1, which belongs to Retail World of Warcraft, and Position 2, which belongs to Final Fantasy XIV. Classic World of Warcraft is the third most popular Western MMO. I'm not counting Chinese or Korean MMOs because their players are free-to-play MMOs, and China's a whole different beast. I'm not even going to count any of their MMOs there because the average MMO is probably 20 or 30 million players.
The fact that Blizzard has secured not just number one on MMO, but also top three. They only got beat out by one. There's one in the middle. What the heck? And the fact that Classic is number three, even though it's literally a 20-year-old game, shows you something.
Considering how they are and how they play their games. But in the West, Europe and NA and South America, Classic is incredibly popular. And Classic World of Warcraft is so popular that the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th most played MMO in the Western world is Classic World of Warcraft. Now,
that's crazy. Ooh, look at these graphs.
We are going to start with Classic Anniversary. And Classic Anniversary has just over 100,000 active weekly raiders. Not players, raiders. That's right, 102,000 people are raiding right now. And this is in Blackwing Lair. Blackwing Lair just came out, people are excited, they're having a good time, but even before that, there was just about 96,000 people playing. And that's not really the most interesting part. People are playing Blackwing Lair despite AQ being so soon, and everybody's actually invested despite all the problems Anniversary Realms have. For example, Flask being 600 gold for a Flask in Anniversary.
That's crazy. That is nuts. If you don't understand the words he's saying, like Blackwing Lair or AQ or anything like that, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Realms hasn't deterred the player base from raiding. In fact, people are only raiding more and more. Which brings to the fact that no matter how much they screw up, or how many mistakes Blizzard makes, you cannot stop the classic player base from playing and enjoying World of Warcraft. I know, amazing. Imagine how much of a difference the player base could make if they actually did boycotts correctly and actually forced the developers, or in this case, the people above the developers, to let the developers fix the game how it needs to be fixed. Because Anniversary does have a lot of problems that needs to be addressed that they're just not really being addressed right now, which kind of sucks. And like I said, with AQ 40 and 20 on the horizon, I do expect this to drop off a little bit, probably a 25 to 35% player base drop, but that still is about 70,000.
AQ 20 and 40, 40 especially, are some of the biggest slogs in the game. Um, they're very long, they're kind of tedious. They're fun, don't get me wrong, especially if you like slogs and things that take a long time. Where else are you going to go kill some bugs with 39 other people and get like little dopamine hits from it? Okay. I mean, Starship Troopers, yes, but also AQ 40.
Ish active monthly players or active weekly raiders. Again, not players. There is a huge portion of the player base that does not raid whatsoever. They're simply there to enjoy the world, collect things, grind.
Most players are not raiders. So, most, okay? In fact, I would hazard, I don't have the stats to back me up on this, but I would hazard a guess that there is double the amount of players as there are to raiders. That might be lowballing it by a huge amount, right? Now, I used to do the whole rating thing. I talk about it in my book, The Blue Collar Call Center, when I relate remote work and remote work leadership in call centers to running a raid guild in World of Warcraft. All right. Because it's pretty much the same thing, especially if you have a smaller team like a 50 seater or below. It's literally like running a guild, only a little bit less annoying because there's less time zones involved. Right. So that's why.
And things, run a couple dungeons with the guys. There are even community guilds and small, close, casual guilds that do not log their raid at all. So these numbers are not even completely accurate. This is just the people that log their raid so they can see their passes. This number could be closer to 120, 125,000 active raiders, but we will never really know unless Blizzard releases their own APIs and metrics and we can see directly from Blizzard what the numbers are. Now we're going to move on to a different game, and that is Cataclysm Classic. Classic, TBC, Wrath of the Lich King Classic, and soon to be Mist of Pandaria. Now, Classic World of Warcraft at its
Now, first, the Burning Crusade, TPC, TBC, my absolute favorite expansion, right? And that's 100% nostalgia talking. I had so many memories with that expansion that it's crazy. All right. Uh, Casting Seed of Corruption and Morose's Ballroom with my Warlock to test out new tanks, to just and this is kind of geeky, and I know we're already talking about World of Warcraft, but we're gonna yeah, it's gonna get a little geekier. The RP, the role play. I was on Moonguard, all right, and Moonguard has a reputation. I was on Horde, and most of the reputation is on Alliance side, especially the Goldshire Inn. But the memories I made in the Burning Crusade, amazing. All right. I still think about it a lot. I still talk to the people I played with back then too. And Burning Crusade launched in like 2007. All right. Wrath of the Lich King was good. I think the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King were the pinnacles of World of Warcraft. Um, and I think it went downhill ever since then. I quit during Cataclysm. Cataclysm wasn't that good, and I would not consider it classic, even though it like came out in like 2010 or 2011, which is a long time ago.
Peak had 500,000 raiders, but for the most part it was averaging in the high 300,000s, 200,000 raiders. And you can see this is around max, 270,000 active raiders, people having a good time in Classic, they were balling. Then came TBC, and TBC kind of really struggled, but it maintained over about 300,000 players up until about the last month and a bit. Wrath of the Lich
Makes
King was the
sense.
most popular, breaking 600,000 raiders in.
That's crazy. Now, Wrath of the Lich King, of course, the Lich King being the most popular villain in Warcraft history from Warcraft 3. So it makes sense. Makes sense. Plus, there were some, you know, life, life, lifestyle improvements, things like that, or quality of life improvements that came with it, right? Nothing like Cataclysm or Beyond, but it was a really good expansion. Again, these two here, the pinnacle, the pinnacle of WoW. And this one's my favorite one. Obviously, it's not as popular as the other one, but it is what it is. And you know what? We like what we like.
Naxxramas, and Naxxramas is the first raid of Wrath of the Lich King, whilst the last raid of Classic. But by the end of Wrath of the Lich King, there was just under 150,000 raiders, the lowest it had ever really been, not counting the drop from Classic to TBC, which was a 1 week break. Now the problem is Cataclysm. Cataclysm's numbers peaked to about 300,000, 320,000-ish give or take, but then it cratered off a cliff, and now
Mhm.
it's averaging about 125,000-ish players. I don't really see this number growing for Mr. Pandaria Classic whatsoever. And I'm not saying this to be disrespectful to the Cataclysm player base, I just don't really see the numbers climbing. I think by the end of Cataclysm we might be at about 115, 110k, and then
Well, here's the thing. Cataclysm did two things, right? One, it completely changed the starting levels and the leveling experience from 1 to 5860, right? Completely changed the world. Quest lines were added in and changed and all this stuff. And it did give a more linear questing progression, but it didn't have the same feel or even the same quality, really, as Classic, as Vanilla, The Burning Crusade, and Wrath of the Lich King. And the fact that, like, they didn't change the Burning Crusade leveling zones or Wrath of the Lich King leveling zones and just focused on the beginning, like Vanilla's, eh, it is what it is. But that would have taken a lot more time. But it's that, and the end game for Cataclysm is not for casual players, right? It is for sweaties. And that's cool, but it's hard. Okay. It's not for the casual gamer. It's not for the people that like to smoke cigarettes while they play a video game. All right. Whereas Classic, Burning Crusade, and Wrath of the Lich King kind of were. So, because you could smoke a cigarette and play the game at the same time, which you can't say that about many other games, right?
come Mr. Pandaria, I think the number's going to drop to about 100k or 90k. Now,
Yeah.
I could be wrong, and it could actually climb to 150 or 200k for the first phase, but by CG Orgrimmar, if the game was breaking 100,000 active raiders, I would be genuinely surprised. Now, if they track looking for raid in this metric, I could easily see it being 300,000 active raiders because it's looking for raid. It's very easy. You just queue up, you go in, you have a good time, you get out. But if they don't count looking for
LFR or looking for raid kind of broke the spirit of raiding, where you would raid with the same people, your guild, that for the most part you would be talking to and with while leveling. right? While questing, while doing dungeons, gearing up for the raid. LFR, you click a button and you get matched up with people. I don't like the way he's staring at me.
Rate, it's not going to be very high, especially by the end of Mr. Pandaria Classic. Because a lot of Classic players do not even view it as being Classic, they just view it as being the beginning or now the middle part of retail, because the whole
It
talent
is.
change, revamp,
It's
and
not
everything,
classic.
most of the retail-esque systems are Mr. Pandaria and onwards. But now that we've covered Cataclysm and we've covered Anniversary, it's time to look at Classic Era and then Season of Discovery. Now, Classic Era is somehow, to this day, averaging about 12,000 active weekly raiders. That's not counting the amount of people that log on and do raids, and people don't even log anymore. They just play the game because this is their favorite version, their favorite server. They've been playing thousands of.
It is a good experience, all right? And these numbers, well, not as high as the other ones, right? It is what it is, right? They're fairly new. And yeah, it is what it is.
Hours on it. This isn't going to change whatsoever. I do not see Classic Era's population shifting. I could see it dropping or climbing by about 1 or 2k in that margin,
Yeah.
but it's going to stay where it is. Classic Era will not change. It's Classic Era. A Season of Discovery is where it's interesting. Now, Season of Discovery opened with a ginormous boom. Probably the
This is what I play, all right? I play Season of Discovery because it's awesome. And it's a change from classic, but it's not anything like retail, which is boring. We'll get into that a little bit later. This is what I play. Yeah, the numbers are low, but you know what? The people are tight. That's right.
most popular experience, not counting Wrath of the Lich King's launch and Classic 2019's launch, at just shy of 500,000 weekly raiders in Black Fathom Deeps. And now this number is, just like I said, staggering. But by each consecutive phase, it dropped more. We had 327,000 peak in Noma, and then we had 185,000 peak in Sunken Temple, and Phase 3 really broke Season of Discovery, because it dropped as low as 20,000 active raiders towards the very end of Sunken Temple in Phase 3. And most people thought Season Discovery was dead. But then at MC, it peaked at around 88,000.
MC is Molten Core. Molten Core is a raid. It's a fantastic raid. First raid, usually. Season of Discovery added a few more before it. But MC, Molten Core, I used to run this every year on my birthday, and it was my birthday present to myself because it was just that good.
Raiders. Then Blackwing there, it peaked at about 88,500 raiders. AQ peaked at about 69,700. And now Nax has peaked at about 77,600. Phase 8 dropping very soon with the Scarlet Enclave could see this number climb as high as 100k, maybe even 125 or 150.
Phase 8, what he's just talking about, launched today, the day I'm recording this, which is the 8th of April. And I am going to play it tonight.
But I do not see the Scarlet Enclave really breaking the player numbers anywhere close to 200,000 again. Now, Season of Discovery is a very popular game where there are a lot of people that play that raid old raids that don't log. Those don't get logged anymore. That log ZGs, they don't get logged anymore. They log AQ20s, which really aren't really being logged anymore. The amount of pugs that are happening, Karazhans aren't being logged. There's a lot of raiding happening that isn't being covered here, as a lot of people are prepping for the next phase and the next raid tier. So, like I said, you could expect 125, even 150 in terms of raiders, but the player base numbers are going to be much higher because there's going to be a lot of people coming back just to experience a new Avalon, a brand new zone. Keep in mind, a lot of classic players are much more casual than people really want to admit. So there's going to be a lot of people that are doing difficulty 0 or regular difficulty that do no logging. So these numbers aren't even really accurate. Again, until Blizzard releases the API and shows us the exact player numbers, we will never really know the authentic number of people playing this game mode. But this is just people raiding. Across all the versions I showcased, this is just people rating. I didn't even touch retail, and if I showed you retail's rating numbers, you would be shocked at how high they really were. Just counting the first week it's been out, there has been over 20,000 raid teams that have cleared this. 20,000. At the raid team sizes being 20 plus. 20,000 across multiple difficulties. Again, all the difficulties combined from normal upwards. We're looking at about, I'm not the greatest at math, let's bring up the calculator. 400,000 give or take people raiding in retail World of Warcraft. Again, that's just the people that do logs. A lot of normal guilds don't really do that. A lot of pugs don't really do that. It's just people that do actually log that into the system. So Classic overall is incredibly popular. I know there's a lot of dooming and a lot of naysaying, saying Classic is dead, it's over, but with Mr. Pandaria on the horizon, with TBC Anniversary on the horizon, with Wrath of the Lich King Anniversary on the horizon after that, weirdly enough, again, with Season Discovery Phase 8 and a potential Phase 9 and Classic Plus in the distant future, there has never really been a better time to play Classic World of Warcraft. The game is far from dead. Despite all of its problems, Classic World of Warcraft is obscenely popular, and that is not going to change. Short of the Riot MMO coming out and absolutely obliterating Classic and retail World of Warcraft, there is no real competition to the Classic ecosystem and formula because nobody's making a game like this, and there's a huge player base that loves and adores Classic despite all of its problems. Now, if they could fix the problems, that'd be amazing, but play Classic World of Warcraft. There's nothing wrong with it. It ain't perfect, but it's classic. So thank you all for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. If you hated it, understandable. Dislike and subscribe so you can hate my next video too. Thank you all for watching. Ebonhard out. Peace.
If you're into that kind of stuff, go give that guy a follow, okay? Ebonhard or whatever. So yeah, Classic WoW is the third most popular MMO on the market in the West, right? Followed by the other iterations of Worldcraft or Warcraft Classic with Final Fantasy 14 in the second place spot and regular retail World of Warcraft at the number one spot, which is crazy. Especially for a game that's been out for over 20 years now. The anniversary servers launched on the 20th anniversary of the game, and those launched a couple of months ago. So, why? Why? So, and I know Blizzard's made its fair share of mistakes. I mean, Diablo 4, um, Diablo 3, Shadowlands, right? Of not giving the customer base, the player base, what they were looking for. And when the when the company started listening to what the people wanted, at least for World of Warcraft, and people wanted classic, and before then, when it brought up at BlizzCon, they're like, "Hey, what about vanilla? What about regular World of Warcraft?" One of the people from Blizzard actually said, "No, you don't really want that." But a couple years later, they launched it in 2019 to huge numbers. People celebrating, cats and dogs celebrating in the streets. So it is what it is. So cool. So here's the thing. If you poll and you pay attention to your customer base and find out what they really want and actually sift through it and actually get good data of what your customers want, you can have a successful launch. You can have people come back to your product because maybe they left because they didn't like the newest iteration of it or they didn't like what was going on with the company, right? But if you give the customers what they really want, they'll come back to you. Classic World of Warcraft is proof positive of that. And I think a case study could be done of the success of classic WoW and how it relates to customer experience, right? Because there was a huge portion of Blizzard's potential market that were playing the same game, but they were playing it on private servers, not hosted or endorsed by Blizzard, right? So, with that said, the reason that people were on those private servers is because they didn't like the new version of WoW or they were cheap. Okay. But I mean, you have to think about what the breakdown there is. How many cheap people who can't afford $15 a month are there, right? And while I will say that there is a private server called Turtle WoW that is freaking fantastic, because they made a few lifestyle or quality of life changes. They added in a couple new races. They basically continue the story from um, World of Warcraft Classic as if the Burning Crusade never happened. But people wanted the classic experience, what they grew up with, what they were playing 20 years ago. Because you know what? It's comfy. How many times have you sat down and played Mario Kart or Super Mario World or Final Fantasy VI or even Final Fantasy VII, right? Or Baldur's Gate or any of those games? Any game from your youth, you play it because it's comfy. You play it because you like it. You play it because there's a sense of nostalgia. And nostalgia is all the rage right now. And, you know, you gotta you gotta admit that memories and member berries sell. So if you can harness that, if you can make people feel comfy with your product or your service, you've got them. Just like Blizzard has me. And I will gladly pay $15 a month for this, for Classic WoW. And Season of Discovery, while it doesn't have as many raiders, I will tell you that the server is pretty full. All right. That's one of the issues with retail World of Warcraft is it feels empty, even though technically there are more players, but because of phasing and the different expansions and time walking and yada yada yada, the world itself, while you're questing, while you're leveling, feels completely void of other people. Even the capital cities feel empty. Season of Discovery, you can't walk into a capital city without seeing a multitude of other people. Maybe at like 2 in the morning, you can. But other than that, it's crowded. You have to, I haven't seen this happen in a long time, but you have to wait for mobs, the enemies in the game, to respawn sometimes because there's so many people doing the quests, which, yeah, can be kind of annoying, but it is what it is. And this dude that we watched didn't even get into hardcore WoW, which is insane because uh streaming community had a guild on there called OnlyFangs and hardcore World of Warcraft where if you die in the game, you can't play that character again, which is crazy to me. Um, skyrocketed in popularity because of this streaming group and tons of watches on YouTube and on Twitch and everything else. And it's just classic where you can't die. Some of the deaths were funny. So, yeah, this was a very, very geeky episode. And I'm not apologizing for that. This is something that I've been thinking about for a while, but use Blizzard's example and yeah, do this. Give your customers what they really want, what they really need. And what they need is something that makes them feel good, something that makes them feel comfy, something that makes them feel like they're at home, no matter what your product or service is. Well, I guess depending, yeah. But for the most part, this is the way to attract customers back to your business and also create customer loyalty. People will always go back to what they feel is comfortable. It's the human condition. It's why if you're want to break out of a rut, you got to get out of your comfort zone, right? Or sometimes when you're in a rut, you need to go back to your comfort zone and recharge. This game is my stress relief. It is my, oh, it's been a long day. I'm going to have a drinky drink, usually soda, and play some World of Warcraft and unwind for a couple hours, right? Now I can't say that I'm the person I was 20 years ago when I used to play 16 to 20 hours a day. I'm not. I'm old now. I have responsibilities, but the 2, maybe 3 hours I get to spend when I do get to play recharges me for the next day. And I think that's important. So if you're still listening to this ramble, just remember I have books, I have merch, and all of that is available in the link in the thing below. Either the show notes if you're listening to the podcast, but you won't be able to see anything, but you can still hear. Or the thingy on YouTube. Okay. The summary. So there we go. That's this week's episode. And if you want, come say hi on Season of Discovery. I'm on the Wild Growth server, Horde. I'm working on a warlock right now called Hellfudge. So this is CX Riot Radio, signing out.